Hi, I'm Nabila, and today I'm going to be my own tailor, and I'm going to take you along the process to show you what a difference tailoring can make. I have 2 items from my closet and 1 item that I've thrifted. All of these alterations should be fairly simple, but my point in showing you this is that it only takes a couple minutes to make a piece of clothing just that much more flattering. I know wearing something flattering isn't everyone's goal, but for me personally, I tend to reach for the pieces in my wardrobe that I know will be flattering towards my body type. So I hope in altering these pieces of clothing that I'll reach for them more often. So let's tackle this blue dress first. I've had this dress since high school, and it's Forever 21, but I believe I thrifted it. I don't really like how the tulip shape of the skirt highlights my bottom half, and I also kind of hate that it's a pencil shape at the bottom, so it's really hard to walk in. So I was thinking I would just seam rip the skirt off and flip it so that the hem is now the waistline, and I was hoping that there might be more fabric in this waist area so that it will flow out in an A-line shape and just be a little bit more flattering for me. So before I take anything apart, I'm going to measure all these pleats here and take some really good notes, because once I take this off, I want to see if I can do anything similar. Okay, so here are my notes.
Oh my god, what is that?
And they don't make sense to anyone other than me, probably, but that's okay.
Oh my god, what is that?
So the next step is I'm going to seam rip off this skirt, and I'm going to start from back here where I noticed the seam was already coming apart, which that's pretty good considering I've had this dress since high school. I think that also speaks to the fact that our fast fashion has declined over the last couple years, so that's kind of scary if you think about it. So that place where the seam is coming apart correlates to this area where this thread is loose. So I'm just going to continue removing these threads. I also had to seam rip the zipper away from the skirt fabric. And I removed the belt loops from this dress. Here's the skirt completely seam ripped off the front bodice, and you'll see this is where it joined at the waist and it goes in a pencil shape at the hem. So I'm going to flip the fabric so the fabric that was once at the waist is now at the hem, and I'm going to use my notes from the pleats and see if I can work out how to make these pleats look similar. And I don't think there's enough fabric to pleat it exactly the same, but at the end, the skirt will be this A-line shape, which I like so much more. I'm so glad I'm doing this. First, I need to seam rip the finished hem, and if you're following along, it would be a good idea to iron the fabric with steam to remove the fold marks, but I'm a little excited to move on to the next step. Now I'm using my notes and some math to mark the pleats, and I'm going to baste them in place before pinning them to the bodice. So now I've pinned my skirt to the bodice and it's all lining up, so I just need to sew this all together and reattach the zipper and hem it, and then it's done. Okay, it's the next morning, I'm back. So to recap from yesterday, I seam ripped off the skirt and I attached it so that where the waist is where the hem was, and it now flows out in this A-line, which is exactly what I wanted. I pleated all that and I pressed it, but I want to press it some more, and I also need to attach this zipper, so let's get into it. When I sew an invisible zipper, I always iron on low heat to gently press the teeth open so that it sits ever so slightly away from where I need to sew it. And I also use an invisible zipper foot, which is a game changer compared to the zipper foot that came with this machine. If you want me to make a full video on my invisible zipper technique, let me know. I'm gonna go ahead and hem this off camera and I'll see you for the reveal. And here's the finished dress. I really love how it came out. I haven't been reaching for this dress even though it's objectively my style just because of the skirt, And so with this alteration, even if I wear it a couple more times, that's way more than I've been wearing it in the last couple years. Out of all 3 projects in this video, this one was the most time consuming because I needed to be pretty gentle when I was seam ripping the fabric, otherwise I would damage the fabric. But I think this project would be very doable for a confident beginner. Next, I have these black pants that are supposed to look like joggers, but someone said they look like sweatpants and that made me a little sad. So I was thinking maybe I could add some pin tucks to elevate this look, and also just generally at the hem it's a little long and in the waist it's a little loose. You'll see that I tried to alter it before here by just sewing sort of like a dart and hoping that would work, but this is like pinching at my back now and it's really annoying. So I was thinking I would fix it correctly in the waistband. So I wanted to add pin tucks first to see if it made a difference in the waist circumference. So I just seam ripped in the areas where the pin tucks would connect with the waist. Then I ironed and pinned the pin tucks into place before sewing them. So I finished all my pin tucks front and back, and now I need to just sew back the parts of the waistband that I seam ripped to get to those pin tucks and hem it, and then I'll be done. When I'm sewing the waistband back up, I'm stretching the fabric so that it's not scrunched up, but I'm making sure to not overstretch because that can make your stitches warped. And here are the pants all hemmed and finished. I forgot to say this earlier, but I tried the pants on after the pin tucks to see if they needed any further adjustment, and they actually didn't. The pin tucks reduced the waist circumference by about 1 inch, and so they fit me perfectly now. Also, I'm so glad I hemmed it. As a short girl, so many of my pants need to be hemmed, but I'm so lazy to do it, so this is a huge quality of life adjustment for me. Out of all the projects in this video, this one was the easiest because the pin tucks actually serve 2 purposes here. And lastly is the item that I thrifted. I'm really excited about this piece, so I saved it for last. I want to add some style lines to make this more elevated. Style lines are seams that don't serve a practical purpose, but they help your garment have a unique look. And I think that I can make this $2 sweatshirt look like something from Free People. The first thing I'm doing is marking the style lines that I want on my dress form. I'm doing this by pinning some cording to the dress form so that when I put my sweatshirt on top of it, I can feel where the cording is and mark the style lines accordingly. So I'm planning on making these style lines princess seams because I just always think princess seams are so pretty, and it's important to note here that this sweatshirt doesn't have any side seams, so I can really add my seams wherever I want, and I like that the piece of fabric won't be broken up into more parts. So if you're thrifting sweatshirts to do a similar project, I would highly recommend looking for sweatshirts without side seams and also sizing up so you have some extra fabric to work with. Then I tried it on and made sure I liked the way it looked. Next, I started cutting and I laid the sweatshirt so the front and back were folded in half, and I pinned everything into place. Then I cut the hemline so that it would be shorter in the front and longer in the back, so I would feel more comfortable wearing these with leggings. And when I'm cutting this, I'm keeping in mind seam allowance and that I want to add the rib fabric back to the hem, so I'm cutting this accordingly. Next, I added seam allowance to the princess seams that I marked earlier, and I'm carefully cutting this out. Here are all my pieces laid out so you can see how it was cut. I pinned the seams together and I was trying to decide if I wanted the raw edges showing on the bodice or not, and in the end I decided to only have the raw edge detail on the sleeves. So now I'm doing the exact same process on the sleeves, except I mark the left and right sleeves so you don't get confused. And I'm sewing these right sides facing outwards so I get that raw edge detail. So I finished sewing the princess seams for the front and back, and then I finished the sleeve seams with this exposed detail. I need to still iron that so that it holds its shape a little bit better. And lastly, I'm going to seam rip off the rib knit from here and attach it back onto the sweatshirt so it has that rib knit finish at the hem. And here's the finished sweatshirt. For some finishing touches, I just did some top stitching on the princess seams and along the raw edge detail. And this just enforces the seam, but it also just looks really nice. This was by far the most fun project for me in this video, but maybe it's because I thrifted this sweatshirt and so it was an entirely new piece of clothing to me. And I also really like the raw edge detail. I think that this would be a great idea for someone who doesn't have a serger because you don't need to serge it, but it still looks very intentional. And maybe it seems a little weird to cut something up just to sew it back together, but these style lines are doing two things for me. One, it's sucking up the fabric so it makes the bodice smaller and the sleeves just a bit shorter. And two, it's giving the illusion of shape to my body without the sweatshirt being skin tight. So yeah, overall, I love how all these projects came out, and I hope this video inspires you to look at your wardrobe in a new light. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!